When you mentioned people were optimistic about developments, not just the AI, but also
Hmm.
many other developments that we saw in the history of humanity.
Hmm.
It's somehow it makes me think about, I don't know, like if we say we are optimistic about something, it seems that we assume there is a reality out there that is already predetermined, and then it's just a matter of knowledge, or belief that,
Hmm.
okay, that reality will be good or
Yeah.
that reality will be bad.
Hmm.
Either case, you will be, optimistic or pessimistic, but the reality is out there. It's just your belief about what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, and I was just playing with the other alternative. What if there's no such reality out there, and we, through time, we shape that reality. So the reality just comes out at one point. Eventually, it just happens as a collection of actions, a collection of thoughts, of efforts, of
Yeah.
all this thing, and
Yeah.
it is what it is in the
Yeah.
end.
I 100% resonate. Like there are two things I want to say about this. The first is the Peter Thiel type of thinking, where it's like if you are, yeah, I think he talked about how the West is relating to China, where there's like this double narrative of they are so competent we can't do anything about it, which is like pessimistic. And then,
Yeah,
oh, they're so stupid, we don't need to worry about them, which is like the naive optimism. And like the naive part is basically we don't need to do anything, which is
yeah,
exactly alluding to it's somewhere it's like a train rolling down tracks out there, and I can just predict stuff about it, but it really won't change anything. Which is an
hmm,
interesting parallel with like the classical physics and quantum physics, where like the
yeah,
observer is actually part of the system, and that's something we still
yeah,
have this
yeah,
Newtonian hangover of thinking it's separate from us. But it's like both sides of it just advocate for passivity or passive behavior. Um, so that's of no use to anyone. And then the other side is basically that people think reality is predetermined out there. We can just predict it, and make, yeah, and our predictions are, yeah, can be better or worse, but don't have anything to do with the outcome. And like Project Liminality has a shit ton to say about that because like if you remember in the I don't know how well I laid it out in the pitch, but um it's quite obvious that in many situations story mediates your relationship. And I talked about the tree, how if you see it as a resource you will treat it like that. um so it's quite obvious that story is that which mediates relationship in that sense, but I would actually go deeper and say, like, as a general definition for story, it is that which mediates relationship. So it's like much more fundamental than just verbal language. Like the
hmm,
kingdom of story is far greater than that of verbal language. It's like everything that mediates relationship, and I take it down to the level where it's more like the fabric of creation itself. um and there are like people like Mark Gaffney, who wrote like unique self theory. If I don't know if we talked about that before, like, um yeah, there's a Kabbalah type of tradition where they talk about you don't need to transcend the ego and leave it in the dust. You need to transform it into the unique self. Um, and he also puts forward that story is like the fundamental substrate of reality. Um, and I think it's so important because if it mediates relationship writ large, like across the board, the
hmm,
most important relationship it mediates is that between potentiality and actuality, between what could be and what is. So like, and that happens like on all levels. Like it's the collapse of the wave function. It happens on the microscopic, but it's also
Yeah.
the foundation, the founding of the United States. On
Yeah.
all levels, it's just like a story collapses the one wave function into some actuality that we attract, we invite. So we don't predict it, we create it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the type of Newtonian idea still has merit, but it's an edge case where it's like, so if you're alone, if you were the only being in existence, pretty much when you're lucid dreaming, you're the only person in that realm. It's so obvious that I call that hyperstition, by the way. It's not superstition that we think we predict reality. It's like hyperstition. We do actually create it. In the lucid dream world, it's obvious that hyperstition is what governs it because you're the only one there. You're the only one. If you think about a blockchain, you're the only ledger, if that's the right word. Like you can just decide what happens in that world. But as soon as you share a reality, like we do right now, these things pull on each other and there will be an equilibrium. And things that seem so causal and seem like they don't care about our idea of it, facts that don't care about our feelings type of phenomena, I think it's just like some sort of Nash equilibrium between all the expectancies of all the people involved, and all the beings. Who knows, like what other beings are collapsing the wave function with us, that we're not even aware of. Yeah, but that's kind of like the cluster of thoughts around that. I think like we are so stuck with the victim mentality of Newtonian causality, that we need to get out of this to make it,